Breaking news, but before I start, listen, and I'm going to give you my opinion.
Backing up everything we have said about ISIS being a creation of the U.S. military. If the government lays a proper warrant on us today, then we will give the specific information requested because we have to by law. But in the case of encrypted information, we don't have anything to give. Now, why would he say that? This is fundamental for you to understand.
Apple CEO Tim Cook is resisting a federal order to hack into an iPhone used by a terrorist in the San Bernardino shootings. The phone is running the latest version of iOS with security that Apple has not even been able to breach. Cook stressed the importance of privacy and how the government's order would create a backdoor for access into all iPhone users' information. He said the tool the government requested would be like a master key, capable of opening hundreds of millions of locks. Right now, the shooter's phone is protected under a passcode and has a self-destruct feature that erases data after too many attempts to unlock it. Cook added that although the government said the key's use would be limited to this case, there's no way to guarantee that.
Now, this doesn't, sound surprising to me, or it's not new to me. Alex Jones, said something about this, a long time ago.
Again, came up in this last debate with Hillary Clinton saying we need to have some kind of a Manhattan-like project to control the internet, to surveil people. This is a major push by the government. Even after the Ed Snowden leaks, they are still continuing to push for more of your information.
This week, FBI Director James Comey told a Senate hearing that the Apple iPhone's encryption has made it impossible for the agency to access its content. Now, a federal judge in California has ordered the company to create software that will do just that.
See, now this is where the government is having problems. All right, I'm an iPhone user. I've been an iPhone user since day one, and I know everything about the iPhone. Now, this is where the feds are having problems. We all know once you plug up the iPhone to the computer, the iPhone is going to require it for you to be, to enter the passcode to actually trust the computer that it's connected to for all the information to be granted. Now, this should be a closed argument in court because at the current moment, like I said, there's no software implementing what they're asking for this one person's, individual iPhone to be granted access to. But the only way I see that the government can ever gain access to anybody's phone or to gain access to this shooter's phone, the Muslim guy's phone, is by upgrading the firmware, which, turn around and, they could have that little backdoor key that they need. But there's no way, they could do it because you need to unlock the phone to give the phone permission. Once again, so, this should be a closed case in court, and privacy, is something that we all must stand for.
But Apple CEO Tim Cook forcefully rejected that order yesterday, writing in a letter addressed to Apple customers, "In the wrong hands, this software, which does not exist today, would have the potential to unlock any iPhone in someone's physical possession."
At the prospect of the FBI winning this order. If Apple creates the master key that the FBI has demanded that they create, governments around the world are going to be demanding exactly the same access.
Whether or not they do this in response to this order,
White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest disputed that, saying the government wants access only to the single device associated with Farook.
We're not asking Apple to redesign its products or to, create a new backdoor to its products. This is a much more specific request that the Department of Justice has put forward.
We think that Apple is capable of doing it for this generation phone. The phone at issue is an iPhone 5C, which I guess is 2 generations back at this point. The iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6S, it is our belief that Apple is probably not capable, at least not capable of using this exact technique to unlock. But we think they are capable of unlocking the 5C.
And you think that's true too, Stuart?
that is what it appears from what Apple has said, that they think they can do it. They choose not to do it, notwithstanding the stakes for terrorism in San Bernardino.
So if
one security feature. The FBI chose this case to get the precedent, right? We know who the shooters were. We know who they were talking to. The FBI already has the metadata. They chose this case because they want precedent that they can order a company to design a particular feature at their whim. So when you hear Stewart or the White House press secretary say it's only this one phone, that's simply disingenuous.
Well, are we talking about precedent here, Stuart? What slippery slope do you envision here?
Well, it's more than a slippery slope. Stuart, as you well know, no court in the United States has ever approved an order of this breadth under the All Writs Act. No court has ever ordered an American company to compromise the security of all of their customers. No court has ever ordered a safe maker to make a master key. And the courts that have addressed it, the In Re, the company case that I'm sure, Stuart, you're aware of, the court found that OnStar could not be ordered to subvert its emergency phone system and turn it into a wiretap act.
The Supreme Court.
This isn't just a slippery slope. If the FBI is permitted to get the order in this case, that's it. They'll be permitted to get a backdoor order in every case going forward. And more than that, Apple will be unable to resist identical demands from China, from India, from Russia. And that's the end of secure devices.
I have to say that the concern here that Apple has is they have said this phone cannot be cracked, and now it turns out that may not be true, and they would like to suppress that possibility because they're afraid that China or Russia might order them to use that capability. China and Russia are perfectly capable of ordering Apple to do that tomorrow, whether they have help from the court in this case or not.
You talk about China and Russia, and I want to ask you both this. Since you brought it up, which is how do international actors see this kind of discussion that we're having here? Does it make us look weak?
I think it...
I think authoritarian regimes around the world are salivating.
It's possible to build that capability. Then the Russians and the Chinese are going to order Apple to do it sooner or later, and probably sooner, whether or not the United States tells Apple to do this.
Can I ask you both to make one thing clear? Do you both agree that Apple is capable of doing what they're being asked to do, and they're just resisting it on principle? Nate Cardozo? Apple stepped up its protections after NSA leaker Edward Snowden exposed government surveillance of phone traffic in 2013. One feature can even erase the iPhone's contents after 10 failed attempts to unlock it. Prosecutors say they are worried that this feature could be on the phone Farouk used, and unless Apple devises a way to unlock it, they could lose all its data. The company now has 5 days to make its formal response in court.
Now we can expect that Apple, Google, and Facebook will become the preferred messaging services of child pornographers, drug traffickers, and terrorists alike. Because, of course, they're the only ones who want privacy, right? Is that right? And, of course, Senator Sass is saying, do you understand that if you allow Obama to do this, then you may have a president down the road that you don't like, those of you on the left. And we need to understand also with the issues. If you're going to let him dictate by executive order gun control, understand that he or somebody else is going to dictate further NSA surveillance and spying and loss of your property and shutting down freedom of speech. And we don't know which party is going to do that. Maybe both of them will do that. You have to understand the principle. And so hopefully the people on the left are going to understand that we can't move this way by executive action, that we have to stand for individual rights. Now, one of the ways that this is happening, of course, we had Tim Cook from Apple, the Apple CEO, talked about this back in June. And he said at the time when he was talking to Epic, which is a foundation for honoring electronic privacy, he says, like many of you, we at Apple reject the idea that our customers should have to make trade-offs between privacy and security. We can and we must provide both in equal measure. We believe that people have a fundamental right to privacy. The American people demand it, the Constitution demands it, morality demands it. And I would point out also, his profits demand it. If Apple doesn't stand up for privacy and make sure that they can tell people that your information is private, they're going to lose their sales internationally. And they will also perhaps lose a lot of them nationally, even though the American people are the ones. Most of the government surveillance is predicated on the idea that third-party providers like Apple or Google or others who handle your data, the phone companies, that once you turn over that information, once they get that information, those third-party people own that information and they can turn it over without a search warrant because it's their information. If they want to voluntarily give it, they can give it to you. It's not your information, even though they collected it on you, because somehow they're carrying it. So the way to get around this is through encryption. because he can give them the encrypted files, they can have a go at it, but they don't truly have your information except in an encrypted form. That's the only way we can get around this, as long as we've got a court that's going to maintain the legal fiction that when people create dossiers on you, that is something that is really owned by Apple or by Google or by AT&T. It's not. It's not. That's a legal fiction created by the Supreme Court to get around our Fourth Amendment protections. And we need to understand what that is. And we need to understand that when you've got law enforcement people saying things like the company implemented the measure so that it could no longer comply with the judicial search warrants that make the work possible. He says iPhones are now the first computer products in American history beyond the reach of lawful warrants. That's not true. He says the result is crimes will go unsolved. Victims are left beyond the protection of law. And he goes on to point out, and of course, he didn't say this, but a senator said, if you want privacy, you are a terrorist, you are a drug dealer or something. We should ask why the government demands privacy so much, why their security, their privacy, their confidentiality, their secrets are so important that they will trash all of our rights, all of our property. Maybe they are drug dealers. Maybe they are the terrorists, and we know, in fact, that they are. That is a sad thing. And it gets even sadder. We see that Ted Cruz, it was even implied in the debate that he should be investigated. That's the kind of McCarthyism that we see coming from Marco Rubio, somebody who pushes an unbridled, uncontrolled surveillance state. That's the kind of McCarthyism we're headed down with this kind of insane security state.
You are the owner of one of these phones, which could be unlocked if Apple decided to go along with this. How worried should you be, Nate Cardozo, that your privacy is about to be compromised?
Well, you know, every individual should do their own threat assessment. If you have particularly sensitive data, if you're a human rights worker in Syria, if you're an LGBT activist in any country around the world where you may be persecuted for your orientation or beliefs, make sure to tune up your security in response to this. Use a passcode longer than 4 digits.
Well, I hope that everyone's doing that anyway. Stuart Baker?
Yes, certainly there are times when everyone wants to worry about security, but the idea that the desire for security could trump a lawfully obtained search warrant to find out whether we're at risk of other people who conspired with the San Bernardino shooters right now strikes me as odd. And for Apple to say, well, it interferes with our business model and our consumer trust to help the U.S. government find out about this possible additional attacker does not make any sense.
This security versus privacy argument, it sounds to me like it's just going to continue. Nate Cardozo.
You know, it's not security versus privacy. This is security versus surveillance. This is security versus security. Before Apple instituted this level of encryption on devices, when devices were stolen, they were susceptible to any run-of-the-mill hacker opening it up. And that's what the FBI wants Apple to return to. That's crazy.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Nate Cardozo of the Electronic Frontier Foundation and Stuart Baker, former Deputy Assistant Secretary at Department of Homeland Security. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.